Hey guys, what's up? It's Shelby and welcome back to my channel. So today is another Mystery Monday video. Today's is actually a mystery. So yeah, also if you want to check out this eye look, it will be up on Thursday, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into this video. So today we're going to be talking about the 5 missing girls in Jacksonville, Florida. So on July 21st, 1974, Jean Marie went missing. And she was just 9 years old. She was at her grandparents' house because her mother was away on a vacation by herself, just to, kind of get away, kind of have a little her time. So she left Jean with her grandparents. So she was at her grandparents and she was going to go walk to the store to buy cigarettes for her uncle. At this time, this wasn't really like a big deal. A lot of kids ran errands for their parents, bought cigarettes, all this kind of stuff for the adults. It was the 70s, so I mean it wasn't really this odd thing for kids to do. And this store was only about 2 blocks away. So Jeannie was a really good kid. She was very outgoing. She had good grades. She loved her family. She was she had her very own personality. She was just this feisty little 9-year-old that, even at 9 had her own little personality. So when Jeannie didn't return back, pretty soon, because like I said, that store was only about 2 blocks away, if that. So when she didn't return, her grandparents called the police, and the police right away said that this was a kidnapping or a missing person. It wasn't a runaway case, because even at this time, a lot of, disappearances were runaways, but the police actually knew Jean and her family and decided that this is, super out of character for her. So they followed, the path that she would have taken, and they got to the store and they talked to the clerk. The clerk said that Jean did come in and she bought her cigarettes and left, but she forgot the cigarettes and had to come back to grab them. And, Jeannie, being her outgoing, full of personality self, started talking to the clerk about what she was going to go do. She said that she was going to go to the hangout to play pinball with the money she had left over from the cigarettes. So, and then she left. And then, so they went over to the hangout and they talked to the owner, and the owner said that she did stop by, but they were actually cleaning the floors and everything, and that told her that she would have to come back later when, everything was clean and dry, and she left. A couple of her friends were actually at the laundromat and said that Jeannie had stopped by. Jeannie is her nickname. She actually stopped by and talked to them for a while. And then was said to have, kind of left. But as she was leaving, a man on a blue bike pulled up and started talking to her. And, Jeannie started talking back and stuff. But her friend said that they didn't know who this man was. And it didn't look like Jeannie knew who he was either. But she was this outgoing, full personality person. So she just kept talking with him. And then something happened, and this was kind of a big part in this case. The man picked Jeannie up and took her to the bathroom, the restrooms around this, this laundromat. But Jeannie didn't scream. She didn't try to get away. She didn't try to fight back. She kind of just followed him. And then once they both came out of the bathroom, Jeannie was crying, but still, again, she didn't try to fight back. And they said that the man took her on her bike and left. So this is either one of two things. Either Jeannie actually did know who this man was and trusted him, enough to have, gone with him, or it was a moment of shock. She did not know what to even do at this moment. We don't know what was said between them. Maybe something he said scared her, and she just kind of went into this shock, this all these emotions were happening, but she wasn't, mentally there enough to figure out how to fight back or say something, which is a pretty common thing. They did everything that they could to try to track this bike down, try to track this person down. The girls gave the police a description of this man, but nothing ever came of this. And then on August 1st, 2 girls went missing from their home. Mylette and Lily Anderson. Mylette was 6 and Lily was 11. So Lily actually had this thyroid condition that requires her to take medicine every single day, and she needed this medicine, to survive pretty much. She needed this medicine every single day. And Mylette had a heart condition and also had asthma. And if you know what asthma is, when you get overexcited, you kind of can't breathe, you can't, overstimulation, kind of, you can't breathe, all this stuff happens. So she had medicine that she would take as needed. Their mom and their older sister had left to go take care of a sick family member at about 6 p.m. that night, and they figured, leaving these two home alone was fine because their father was supposed to be home around 6 o'clock anyways. So they left the two girls there, and they left, and their home was secluded. It was kind of in the back, it wasn't directly in town or anything. It was kind of hard to get to. That's also why they felt safer, just leaving the two girls home alone, at this time. Their dad actually got caught up at work and was going to be home late, so he called the house and they picked up, and he said, I'm gonna be home late, is everything okay? And Lily had said that everything was fine, but the dad could hear the dog barking in the background. So he asked, is everything fine? Why is the dog barking? And Lily said, I don't know, the birds outside are probably, just messing around and making the dog bark. And that was it. But that did not sit well with their father at all. He had this feeling like he needs to call them back right away. So about 20 minutes later, he tried to call back to the house, but they wouldn't pick up. And immediately he rushed home to find nothing. The girls were gone, and he could not find their family dog. He searched the whole house for them, and he found their dog in the back room, locked up in that room, but there was no sign of the girls. Mylette actually had this doll that she carried around everywhere. She brought it all over the place. She loved this doll, and he actually found it in their house. He called the police right away to report them as missing, and they came by and did an inspection and stuff like that, and they actually talked to some of the neighbors. They weren't close neighbors, but they were close enough to have seen into the driveway and stuff like that. The neighbors had said that they saw a white car in the parking, in the driveway and around this area, but they never saw the little girls leave the house. So they did a 100 square foot radius search around this house, and they found absolutely nothing. There was a whole bunch of sightings of the girls just around town and stuff like that. They have said to have been in a pickup truck, around the schoolyard, stuff like this, but none of them were actually confirmed to be the two girls. And that was kind of the end. And then on September 27th, 12-year-old Virginia Helm went missing. So she was walking on the south side of Jacksonville, Florida, to a store to go get soap for her family. And then she vanished. This walk from her house to the stores really only took a couple minutes maybe, and her parents knew that, and when she didn't come home right away, her father went looking for her immediately. And when he found nothing, he called the police to report her missing. Virginia is said to have been very quiet, very, not really a social person. She was not a, outgoing person. She kind of kept to herself, but she was a very kind little girl. Around this time, some witnesses had said that there was this car going by that was, following little girls and telling them, get in my car, and when they didn't, they followed them, around and stuff like that. But, they can't really confirm if Virginia was a victim of this or not, but it definitely was somewhat of a lead. And then 3 days later, a tip came in that, was very odd and kind of disturbing. A couple called in to say that they found a red bug on the side of the road parked, and this was the 70s. People were pretty, they weren't scared of each other, so they went up to this car and they asked the man, is everything okay, are you having car problems and stuff like that. And they saw a little girl in the back that looked like Virginia. She was not sitting on the seat though. She was actually on her hands and knees on the floor of the seat, on the floor, there's the seats and then there's the floor. She was sitting on the floor on her knees, and her hands were on the ground. And they said when Virginia looked up at her, her pupils were so dilated, and she kept looking around frantically. She looked very scared. When the couple asked, like, is everything, like, what's going on here? The man sped away, and he didn't realize that a bag had actually fell out of his car as he drove away. The police took this bag right away, took it into, evidence and stuff, but I don't think anything was ever found on this. I couldn't find anything about it, having anything to do with Virginia or, DNA or anything like that. So there was already 4 girls missing, and this was not getting media coverage at all. There was, like, nothing really out there about these 4 girls missing. I mean, everybody kind of knew about it, but it wasn't, like, anything, like, publicized, like, on papers and, around like that. Nobody really knew about it unless you knew the family that it happened to, pretty much. And then on October 16th, 12-year-old Rebecca Green went missing. So that day, Rebecca had actually missed the bus for school and just decided to stay home. At about 10 o'clock, she went to go to the store to get her and her mom some soft drinks. And then she never came home. Her mom obviously called the police and everything, and the police went down and asked the clerk, like, have you seen her? And she said, yeah, she came in here and she bought these soft drinks and then left. And a local butcher actually said that she stopped by to talk to him and said that she would be back later, and left out a side door, and that was the last time she was ever seen. So now we have 5 girls missing, and they finally reported it in the paper, like, front page, that these 5 girls were missing. They searched with everything that they had, and the public was terrified. They, wanted to do whatever they could do to help. A lot of them volunteered to help search for Rebecca and, all the other girls. I mean, they had horses, they had people on foot, they had dogs, they had search teams. I mean, they had everything in the 70s that they could have had to try to find these 5 girls. But again, nothing was found. That is until 9 days later. A couple was out picking some pine cones up for some Christmas decorations that they were gonna do, and they were out in the woods when they found a little girl's body. But it was not Rebecca. It was actually Virginia Helm. She was shot in the head, and she was found only in a t-shirt. There is said to have been no sexual assault on her or anything like that. And this is kind of, odd, because she was the one that they had kind of said, like, I saw her in this buggy, you know what I mean? So it was, like, just kind of odd that, she was the one that was found dead. That is pretty much all we have on the case as of, what had happened and, all the searches and evidence and stuff like that. So I'm going to go on and get into a couple little theories. There's actually 2 serial killers that I want to, kind of talk to you about that people think are actually tied to these cases. The first one being Ted Bundy, which I honestly don't believe, so I'm not going to get too much into this. But, Ted Bundy drove a bug. That was his car, was a bug, but he drove a tan bug, which is, kind of far cry away from red, but, he was kind of said to have taken, Virginia and the other girls, because, if you know who Ted Bundy is, he targeted, girls, and, he was a good-looking man. He was, very kind and stuff like that. He was very much able to lure, girls in and stuff like that. But at this time, he wasn't in Florida. He was, way up in, like, Wyoming and, like, Washington and, like, that area up there. But 4 years later, in 78, he was actually in Florida with a orange buggy that he had stolen. So, I guess that kind of would be why. But again, this was 4 years later. I don't think he had anything to do with these, because if you look at his prime targets, they weren't children. They were, women in their 20s and, teenage years, not 12 and under, Then in December 1974, the year that these girls went missing, a serial killer actually confessed to 2 of the girls' kidnapping and murder. This was 28-year-old John Paul Knowles. also known as the Casanova Killer. And to put this into perspective, he was actually said to have been more like violent and brutal than Ted Bundy. So his kill spree actually did start in Florida and kind of went all around like the US, but he did start in Florida, and his first victim that they could identify was an old lady. She was 65 years old, and I'm not going to get into all of his cases and stuff like that, like all of his convictions, of all the people he murdered. So after he murdered this woman, he actually stole her car and drove it around for a while, and then decided he needed to get rid of it. So he brought it out and had parked. And when he found this, he kind of saw these two girls looking out their window at him. And he had known these two little girls and knew that these two little girls knew him, because I think he had mentioned like his mom knew their mom, so they kind of knew each other. And he knew if these two girls saw him drop this car off, that they would be able to identify who it was. So he lured the two girls out into their car and kidnapped them, and then said that he killed them and dumped them in a swamp. And these two girls are said to be Lily and Mylette, which does kind of make sense because, like I said, their house was kind of hard to get to. It was not in town, so if he pulled up, to this area and was, just kind of trying to dump this somewhere that, wouldn't be out in the open, this would be a place for it. And those two were home and the dogs were barking, and you know what I mean? So and to me, that's the only case that I feel like does not connect with each other. The rest of the girls' kidnappings were them walking from their house to a store or a gas station, or you know what I mean? Theirs was their own. Those two were the only two that were taken from their house, not from the street. That's the only one to me that sticks out that is different, is those two. So it kind of makes sense to me that this could have really, happened. But it is said that he just wanted to be this infamous serial killer. He wanted to be known as this brutal serial killer, and he would, just kind of start adding, victims of his to his list of people who he said he had killed, just for like shock value, just kind of say he killed this many people. But a lot of his were never identified to even be his, but he did admit that he did kill two little girls in Florida, but he never named them or anything, I don't believe. But that is it. The other two girls, I guess, yeah, four of the girls are still missing to this day and have never been found since the 70s, 74. And sadly, Virginia did, get murdered. But the other girls have yet to be found, so that is awful. It's so sad. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and then let me know what you guys want to see next down below. Don't forget to follow my social medias. They are all linked down below as well. I post on Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30 Central Time, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!